A little bit of conversation about the paper process, but you need to almost visualize what is the physical process that my piece of paper, imagining we were back in a world before DocuSign, what is the physical process that my piece of paper needs to go on, and reverse engineer it from being signed by the economic buyer all the way back to me sending it across. So imagine whose desk it will go across: procurement, a line of business lead, an MD of a certain business unit, a VP of something, somebody in legal, somebody in finance. Now think about, how long is this going to take? Are there any bank holidays? Are there any planned vacation leave? Are there any business conferences that are going to take any of those individuals out of the business for any period of time? What information are they going to need when they see the paperwork to say, yeah, happy with this, on to the next person? So you really want to think that through as well. So really think through each of those steps. Who is the paperwork going to touch? And what information are they going to need to see and be happy with before they move it on? It's also important to think about what could go wrong as part of this process. If there is something that could stop this happening, and have this conversation with your coach, right? What could change that would mean that this didn't happen? Now there's any number of wild and wonderful things that could happen, and COVID is a great example of something that came completely out of left field that no one could have seen. That derailed a whole bunch of business. But think about changing priorities. So what if what would lead a budget to change? What would lead a priority to change? What happened if somebody left the business, somebody in that chain, or your coach looking elsewhere, or your economic buyer was looking elsewhere? What could happen at the board level? Could you get gazumped? Is there a non-executive director who is a friend and a competitor of yours? So it's worth thinking about all those kind of scenarios and trying to war game them so that you don't end up in a situation where at the last minute you've got a deal committed, everyone's counting on it, and something happens. Now let's really focus in on the economic buyer for a minute as well. So you want to ensure that they are ready and waiting to sign the document when it arrives. So the process of doing this, of warming them up, really starts right at the beginning of the sale. So identify who signs off at each stage of the sale, establish how much interaction your champion has with them, and understand how, why, and when they approve spending that isn't necessarily budgeted for or relates to your particular product. So, what does a business case for this economic buyer need to look like? How much time do they need to review it? What does it need to be? What needs to be in it for them to sign it off? And then at regular stages, check back that the economic buyer is still in place. None of the information that you established at the beginning of the sale in terms of what information needs to be provided, what a business case needs to look like, establish that none of that has changed. Test to see what help and support your champion needs from you to get this through, and find out who else will be part of the decision-making unit that may have a strong tie or stronger ties with the economic buyer than your champion does. And then figure out, how could you engage with that individual? Finally, we touched on this earlier, can you get in front of the economic buyer? Majority of the time I'd say that it's difficult, but not impossible. But if you can get in front of the economic buyer, you need to know what you're going to say. You need to know what the purpose is of that meeting. Why is it of value to them? They'll understand why it's of value to you. You're a sales guy, you want to look me in the eye, you want to understand if I'm going to sign this piece of paperwork. But what's in it for them? So you need to have a really compelling reason why they should meet with you to actually get in front of them in the first place.